Hello, my name is Andrew. I am now 32 years old and I made videos when I was at university about body dysmorphic disorder. I just wanted to record this because I felt inspired to do so, because I have been having some struggles with the BDD, which I purposefully don't call my BDD because I don't feel it's helpful to almost talk about it as if it's a part of me. It is the BDD that I experience. I experience the mental illness, which is due to a variety of factors, but it's not me fundamentally, and that's how I cope with that. Anyway, it's been a couple of years since I put anything on here, but I just really wanted to, basically, and to reach out and say hello. I don't know if anyone is still subscribed to this channel, and that's absolutely fine. Well, I know there are some people that are subscribed to this channel, but whether or not the same people see this or not, that's okay. Since the last time I posted, I have obviously cut my hair, and then I finished my degree, and I went and I studied some more, and I went into kind of like the help-giving professions. And I currently, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, but I get so much out of performing, which I didn't do when I was a student. In fact, when I recorded some videos while studying, I think I did my first ever auditions for like student plays, and didn't get them, but I just found it such a thrill. I even auditioned for like a cappella. I mean, I can sing fine, but like it was just quite a thrill to just do that, kind of like exposure therapy, I guess. And putting myself in a position where people were, could judge me and did judge me, but it was okay, and it wasn't threatening. And I did some improv and things too. And over the years, I've done more of these things, and I've been in community theatre, and I want to do more that is, that feels good. It just feels good for me to perform, because I can kind of just escape while also being myself. I can experience so much, and be in so many different situations and environments and contexts, but it just provides like a whole multiverse all in itself, and I get to be in it but also not in it at the same time because it's acting. So that's kind of where I'm at in life at the minute. I did a lot with the BDD Foundation here in England, around, I was in a video in 2016, it's now 2024, right? So, like nearly 8 years ago, whenever it was in 2016. And then that was on like my recovery journey, and then I appeared in there, I was featured vocally in their podcast. Yeah, with BDD these days, I mean, it's the 10-year anniversary this year, last month actually, of my kind of recovery, right? So when I finished my my sort of specialist therapy, and since that time, I've had other kinds of therapy and counselling, and I've continued taking my medication just to kind of like maintain my well-being, my mental health, right? And it was when I recorded the podcast, I said, and they really focused on in the podcast, this sort of idea of me being 95% recovered by my own description. And to clarify, this is I think it's called the Beating BDD podcast by the BDD Foundation, and Claire Atherton, who produces it and records it and creates the magic, right? In terms of where I'm at though, I think it was really hard, the 10-year anniversary of kind of being like, but surely I should be better now. Surely I shouldn't have to feel this way at all. Surely I should not have to worry. I mean, my big thing, and I'm going to do some exposure therapy right now on camera because it's helpful for me. Like, my big thing is my hairline, right? And I did that in a previous video, because quite frankly, like, my hairline, it's not what it used to be. Like, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not a teenager. And I literally would say to myself, like, I'll stand in front of a mirror and do this and go, if somebody sees me like this and sees everything that's on display here and strips everything back, then they'll think I'm too hideous to live, that I'm so disgusting, I should be whatevered. And I'm like, dude, that's not true. I mean, for years since I had my haircut, I had it kind of like pushed back in kind of like a other way. And recently I had it cut, and it's been quite kind of liberating to put it forward, because it like sticks right to my skull, right? And allows me to be like, oh, here are my ears. And I always use my hair as a shield for my ears, right? And I would say to myself, you know, if I lost my hair, then people would mock my ears again. But actually, I'm kind of in a bit of a situation now where it's been really hard because it's the 10-year anniversary, because it's just reminding me of stuff and, you know, reflecting and so forth. And also, you know, I'm going through this period of like, I had my hair cut and changed, where I said, I don't want to hide my hairline. Like, I refuse to be ashamed of something I have no control over, something which is genetic, you know, and linked to a variety of factors, but something that I'm not choosing, you know, and I refuse to believe, I refuse to be shamed by the beauty industry into believing that I need to have surgery, that I need to have a cosmetic treatment to, you know, correct something which is natural. I mean, this is all perspective, right? I mean, someone could say, well, you know, if something else went wrong, you know, biologically, you know, you might have some surgery to correct that. But this is cosmetic, right? It's not the same as, you know, something to do with a vital organ or something. Like, people go bald all the time or are balding. My hair loss, I would say I'm very fortunate, has been at a very slow pace over like the last 10 years. Like, you know, the difference between what I just showed you, I'm going to do it again because it's exposure therapy. Like, the difference between, you know, what we see here and what, you know, was 10 years ago is, you know, I'm actually just going to leave my hair like this because this is another form of exposure. I'm not like flapping with it. But like, the reason why I feel I'm fortunate in that way is that it's been very slow. It's only been maybe like millimeters a year, centimeters at most over the last many years, 10 years or so, which may be considered normal hair loss, right? But it's I'm very much aware, and I haven't really, I'm doing this video spontaneously, so apologies if you're watching and being like, yeah, that's just normal. This is the nature of the BDD that I experience. I am so aware that my perspective at the minute is really skewed. You know, I'm not pretending that I haven't experienced hair loss, but the degree to which it is affecting my mental health, I'm really acutely aware of. And my lovely housemate and so many of my friends, you know, my sister, you know, well, I've done that, you know, this exposure to, and they've gone, you know, you're fine, like, you're absolutely fine. I'm purposely leaving this here as well because this is going to bother me, but I'm going to leave it for a minute because it feels liberating. You know, like, they've said to me, like, you're fine, like, you know, it's not much, or it's, I hadn't noticed, and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. You know, I love you. You're beautiful. You know, you're so much more than just your hair, or, you know, or lack thereof in certain places, or even if it was overall, it wouldn't matter. And my mum said something similar to me, but she, you know, she said something, you know, with no intention, but just sort of her reaction to sort of noticing the degree to which I had lost my hair, you know, the significant change perhaps to what she had expected. And this was when it was like this, right? This is when it was kind of, I can't do it now because it's too short, but I had it centre parted and like pushed back and really shaved on the sides. And, you know, and I like that. But ironically, I thought you could kind of see, there was more perspective, right? Of like, you know, of said hair loss because it was away from my forehead, or more so. But that comment has made me think about, you know, like, people say and do things and don't mean to, but it can really affect me. And I think that's kind of where I'm at this point, where I'm thinking, okay, I want to, I can't remember who said this, so I don't want to sort of steal a quote, but I read somewhere recently, somebody said very wisely that, you know, we can embrace our changing bodies not by, you know, changing ourselves, but by changing the way we sort of love and perceive ourselves. That's probably a misquote actually, but I thought that's so beautiful, and that's what gives me like calm and inner peace is this feeling of I want to embrace me and the changes that come from the gift of getting older, like the gift. And apologies if I get a bit emotional as I say this. In fact, I take that back. I'm not going to apologise because it's completely understandable. I've worked in jobs with people who've been through so much tragedy and trauma and pain. And I volunteered for some time when I was at university in a children's hospice, and I was like, I'm just reminding myself that no matter how hard things are, even if it's for a sustained period of time, I have tomorrow. I have tomorrow. I went recently I was very lucky to go on a Caribbean cruise, and I'm like, a Caribbean cruise? Like, there are people who I've worked with who've never left the country, let alone gone on a Caribbean cruise. And it was incredible. Like, I was struggling with my BDD, but I was with my family, my loving family, and my parents were like, we'll pay for you to come if you want to come. And I was like, that'll be amazing, thank you so much. So we went away, and I had such a wonderful time with my sister and bonded with her more, just with more time with her than I have had in ages. And I had such incredible exposure to communities that I'm aware of, would have very limited resources and very, there was so much poverty in some of these nations, and it felt like such an exploitative experience on reflection. But what I'm saying is, with all this knowledge in mind, is that it's so interesting that my brain can so easily forget it. Like, I can feel myself forgetting that feeling of perspective now I'm back in London, because there are brick houses everywhere, and there certainly weren't in parts of the islands that I went to. Like, there is food in abundance here. There is, and again, I don't want to be casting too wide a sort of a dispersion here. Like, but from what I was seeing very briefly, I was seeing such significant poverty. Like, infrastructure that was wasn't available like it is in London, and I'm trying, and of course in so many other places, right? And just reminding myself that I can have a hot shower anytime I want. I can go and have a haircut. I can go to a hospital and get medical care immediately. I'll have to wait a bit, but it'll be immediately, so to speak. I have so many niceties around me. Like, I'm surrounded by those, like a PlayStation, a TV, a laptop. I've got a bloody massive bed behind me. Admittedly, it takes up the majority of the room, but still, it's there. Like, I have a roof over my head. So I'm a queer person. I may have said before, I'm not sure, but I was really discovering my sexual orientation at university, and I found that in my experiences of dating, men, it has been challenging, because in that world, it is, there's so much focus on physicalness, physical bodies, whether it's literally anything from like muscle size to penis size. It is like front and center, these things. It's physicality. I mean, the apps can be a nightmare, right? when dating. And I choose queer as a word in particular because it wasn't my experience that I was, gay from childhood at all. And I've dated people who knew from a very young age. But for me, I had this. I wouldn't say it was my coming out, but my realization that actually there was just more to my sexual orientation when I was in my early 20s, and then it sort of moved significantly to being, homosexual since then, to use a very formal sounding British word, homosexual. Anyway, but I go by queer because it doesn't box me in as much, because my life isn't just a box. My experiences are not just a tick box. There's been a great deal more shades of grey and so forth, and that's really what I feel now with BDD, is that, like, I'm not unhappy. I have a great job, I have a great life, I have great friends, but I don't quite believe that 100%. I believe I have great friends, in particular, but like, I'm craving more, and I think that, that kind of links to a variety of things, and I think that's when the BDD kind of gets tapped into. My mum calls it my magnifying glass. Like, when I'm a bit like, maybe a bit bored, because the weather's not been great, or things haven't been as fast at work as they have been at other times, or maybe I don't feel as socially connected or whatever, you know, there are all these different things. It can then in my head be like, well, if I looked better, then maybe I'd be happier. And I know that's the old trap, right? I know that that's not true. Like, I know people who, when I think about people who I've thought, God, they're so attractive, and then it turned out that they've spoken about how miserable they were because of their job, or because of the stress and pressure they felt, or, you know, because actually the reality is, you know, they're not happy all the time because they have, you know, responsibilities or health conditions or other kinds of context that means that their life isn't as shiny as it appears on Instagram. And yet, even though I know that, I can go to this automatic place of like, but if I just had nicer trousers, or if I go to the gym more, or if I had a full hairline, whatever that term means, right? You know, if I just had this, then I would be happy. But the grass is always greener, right? The grass is... So I'm just realising actually the progression in this video from like when it was like this at the beginning to like the end of the video where I'm like, ah! You know, the grass is always greener. And I'm so grateful for people who've watched my videos in the past and helped to give me perspective, which I can now look back on years later. Because there were people in the comments, and I talked about it before, who said to me, I mean, one in particular comment has always stuck with me, which was, if I looked like you, then I would be happy. And I thought that really helped me to account for what I don't see, and, you know, and look back now and be like, I mean, I look back at the videos I did years ago and think, oh my God, I was gorgeous. I look gorgeous. And I'm sure I'll look back on this and feel the same. And I'm not pretending that I'm not perceived by people, you know, that have spoken to me and said, you know, you are very conventionally attractive. And, you know, I'm aware that is a significant privilege. I think that also the irony, right, is that I struggle to see it. And not only do I struggle to see it, you know, sometimes I do, and I'm like, oh, I can see what people mean. I like these parts of me. I like all of me at times, you know. And then suddenly I'm like, but, and then the BDD comes back, and or that the BDD is always like, I don't say it's not like this kind of monster that just arrives. It's just a way of thinking sometimes, or traps, patterns in my thinking that aren't helpful. And then I'm like, oh, okay, it's that thing, you know, like that's the way I explain it. And I don't have an answer for everything. And I remember when I created my previous videos, I was so concerned that I had to have an answer for everybody who may watch it, that I would have a way of like a contingency plan to anything that I could say or that people might say back, and not in like a confrontational way, but in a way of like soothing distress. You know, I was so worried that like, who the hell am I to speak about these things? You know, but I need to, and that is that's selfish. And do you know what? If people if people don't haven't found my videos helpful, my few videos, you know, then that's okay. That is absolutely okay. I think that this is therapeutic for me, and I know from comments and so forth that it's therapeutic for others. And I hope it is still. What I've learned through my challenges and over time is that actually you're never going to get it right 100% of the time. You're never going to get it. Always someone is going to be upset or angry or unhappy, and that's okay, because, you know, sometimes it's because they're hurting too, right? You know, triggered by BDD stuff or other things that are going on in people's lives. You know, I've once or twice, I think, I've had abusive things said to me, but I've not, you know, then there's no excuse for that. But there perhaps is a way to understand where that comes from. When BDD tells us that we're not worth, we shouldn't be worth things, or I shouldn't enjoy the things that I'm doing because actually secretly I'm hideous or something like that. Like, I know that's not true, and I don't apply that to other people when I look at them. Even if I'm not attracted to them, I just feel this neutrality, this peaceful neutrality, and I'm trying to apply that to myself as much as I can. But I'm going to big myself up where I should, right? And I hope we all can. Yeah. in our own ways. But I'm running out of things to say now, and I'm running out of water because I'm talking so much. But basically, I'm going to go back and get some more therapy. Again, recognise that's a privilege to be able to do that. If you can access therapy, you know, and depending on your means and circumstances, CBT, that's what really, really helped me. Specialist CBT, so someone who had real experience in working with body dysmorphic disorder, you know, exposure therapy, and kind of keeping up the exposures day by day. Like I would walk along, often when I had my hair previously, because it was, as I said, it was like this, so it would like blow in the wind backwards, and I would deliberately turn into the wind, so the wind would like blow it this way as I was walking past people, and I would notice, I'm going to keep doing this, I would notice that, you know, nobody cared. Excuse me, I just burped. You know, nobody was like, "Oh, hideous, run away." You know, that just didn't happen. And I recognised that my thinking can be so all or nothing. And one of my core beliefs when I was younger was that if one person thought I was unattractive, excuse me again, gosh, that would be it. That I was just therefore ugly. And as I've gotten older, I've worried because, you know, I've built this self-esteem back, you know, from feedback from others and exposure, right? And people being like, actually, you're good looking, and you know, you enjoy your life. And I'm like, okay. But then as my hairline has changed, basically, and I'm getting older. Again, I'm only 32, but I've now been left with this fascinating kind of fear of, but what if that goes away? You know, like what if people don't say nice things to me anymore? And people do, you know, and again, lovely. I think it's about just continuing to work for me on like what that kind of validation means to me, and how it's you know, it's almost like the antithesis of when I was really bullied at school for years and years and years about my ears, right? People say nice things now, and I'm like, oh, don't go, you know. But it's about building that sense for me that I'm fine as I am, and I'll change and I'll grow, and that's good, because it's the gift of living longer, right? And I can do so much and experience so much, and I know that everyone's lives will be different, and people watching this may not be in that position. You know, it's likely that everybody's experiences are limited and different to different degrees, but this is it, right? I mean, I'm in London and I look at the millionaires and stuff who work in London, and I think, God, if I wish I had all of that. And then I think, actually, what I enjoy are the little things, really. You know, I enjoy talking with a good friend, you know, or just talking to a stranger and having a nice, pleasant conversation. You know, when, you know, it's not often in London, but those nice moments. You know, I love working with kids. I've worked with kids for years. You know, I love just talking with a child, because their perspective can be so innocent and fresh and just wonderful kind of perspectives on the world. And, you know, investing my time in things I like doing, like I said, performing, and people recognizing that skill and that talent for me, because I've never been sporty. I'm not an artist. You know, I've never really had that. And I've discovered that through time and exposure, right? You know, getting myself out there, and even the smaller things. Like there's a couple of birds on the tree outside, and I'm like, I love birds. I would happily be a bird watcher. In fact, that's literally what I'm doing now. And I guess it's just, you know, it's just these things, and it's so easy to forget. And I will have bad days. We'll all have bad days, but trying to just do the things I can, whether it's, you know, the more clinical support and then the day-to-day support, to just really get me where I need to go and want to go and will go. So to end this video for now, I'm just going to do this and just leave that and say, take care everybody. And it might just be like one person watches this, but whoever does, you know, I genuinely wish you like all the very best, and lots of love, and, you know, yeah, all good things, right? Whatever that means to you, please take good care, and yeah, maybe see you in a couple of years. We'll see what happens. I don't know. Thanks for watching.